Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Timtra, and today I'm going to be reviewing the March 2021 Humble Choice Bundle. As always, I played each game for about 30 minutes to an hour to form my impressions for this video. I'm going to go over the games in the order in which they are presented in the bundle, and I'll give you my general impressions like what type of people will like the game, whether the game plays well, or the value it adds to the bundle. And at the end, I'm going to summarize my overall thoughts on the bundle. This is going to be a longer video, so I'm not going to waste any more time and I'm just going to jump right into it. So the first game we have up is Control, Standard Edition. And holy shit guys, I thought XCOM was going to be the best game in this bundle, but Control made such a good first impression on me that now I'm not so sure. Starting off really strong with this one, honestly. Control is a third-person action-adventure game that has a lot of paranormal horror elements. People will find different things to compare this game to, but I found it seemed to be at least somewhat influenced by the SCP Foundation universe. The Federal Bureau of Control is a secret government agency tasked with containing paranormal objects, and the facility has had a breach in security, which has killed most of its staff in a really fucking weird way. It just feels like I'm in an SCP containment breach. I mean, look at this document. It has a containment procedures section for the anomalous gun on it. Someone on this team has to be an SCP fan. This is too much like SCP. I love it. I love the little reference. I hope it's an SCP reference. People who are really good at noticing small details in the environment will notice some really cool and creepy anomalies. You can really tell that something weird is going on here. You know, there's subtle changes in the environment and things that kind of shouldn't be there logically, you know, aside from the overtly paranormal stuff. I really want to talk about them, but honestly I feel like I would just be ruining the experience of finding them out for yourself if I did that for you. The story is weird and unclear, but intentionally. It's kind of like deliberately abstruse. The narrator is unreliable as hell, and probably is insane. I think she's either talking to the player, kind of breaking the fourth wall, or there's some other voice in her head. Not sure which yet, because I've, you know, not only got like an hour into the story, but needless to say, I'm really interested in where the story goes. The gunplay and combat is good insofar as I've been able to play. I think it'll open up more as I play with the introduction of more powers. Just before I ended my session, I collected a floppy disk that gave me psychokinetic powers, so I'm optimistic to be sure. The exploration and collectibles are also pretty good. A lot of them help to flesh out the world, but some of them are just downright so creepy I actually had to look away from my screen, and I'll let you find out those for yourself. The only thing that I didn't like is that even running on medium settings, my FPS was only like 50 to 60. I thought it would be a bit more, to be honest, considering it looks good, but it doesn't look good enough to be slowing down my computer that much. It's also disappointing that this is the standard edition. A lot of people must have been confused because there were some issues on the Humble site that indicated it was the ultimate edition. That's pretty disappointing, and it might be a reason to hold off on this if you really want that DLC. So I've spent a long time on this one, so we have to move on, but I was pretty floored with this and I really didn't expect it to be this good, so really great first impression for Control. Our next headliner here is XCOM Chimera Squad. Chimera Squad is a turn-based tactics and strategy game set 5 years after the events of XCOM 2. After freeing the Earth from alien invaders and its puppet government Advent, humans and the leftover aliens from the invasion must work to rebuild and exist in City 31. Chimera Squad is an elite unit, basically a SWAT team, made up of both aliens and humans sent to keep the peace and maintain unity in the city. So I'm a fan of the XCOM franchise, and I've beaten the first game and played about halfway through the second, just haven't been able to find the time to beat it yet. Nevertheless, I was happy to see this game in the bundle. Unfortunately, I already had this game in my library before the bundle came out. You win some, you lose some. This game is basically XCOM meets Door Kickers. The gameplay is similar in some ways to the previous games, but also pretty different in others. Missions are broken up into a series of encounters in which you fight a group of enemies, then breach into the next room to take on the next group, rather than the more open maps of the previous games. Also, unlike previous games, none of your agents can die, and they are predetermined characters, which kind of takes away from the stakes and that classic XCOM feel of, like, you know, creating your squad and naming them and customizing them and then feeling sad when they die, so that is kind of lost here. But despite these differences, I had a lot of fun while playing the game. It still maintains that XCOM feel. You still miss shots at point blank with a 90% chance to hit. There are a lot of familiar mechanics, like the grand strategy of the map back at base, researching and building items to kit out your soldiers, and the general mechanics of combat. Also, the idea of having friendly aliens is great because it opens up a whole new realm of abilities to use in combat, and is also just really interesting for veterans of the franchise because we get to use the abilities of our once enemies. So this is probably not the game that I would recommend first if you're looking into getting into the XCOM franchise. The first two games are a better representation of the franchise overall, and this is a more of a side game like the Bureau XCOM Declassified rather than XCOM 3. But since this game is a good deal in the bundle, I would say this is a fine point to try out the franchise as long as you keep that in mind. If you're a fan of XCOM like me, I think this is a good draw to the bundle, especially for those who are interested in it but didn't feel like they wanted it at full price. This is a great chance to pick it up, and overall I think this is a good draw to the bundle. Number 3 is ELEX. This is one of those games that I'm scared to give a super optimistic first impression on, since it's like a 50+ hour game, and last month I was pretty optimistic with Outward, but after playing that game for a dozen or more hours, I ended up really not liking it. But I will try to give my impressions with muted enthusiasm for this one, because I think it's pretty similar to Outward. ELEX is an action RPG from the creators of the Gothic franchise. I've never played those games, but the Steam reviews indicate that ELEX follows a similar style. It is set in a post-apocalyptic fantasy world in which a meteor struck and destroyed a civilization that seems to have been around modern society's level of development. This meteor carried a new material, ELEX, to the world, which allows for magic, the powering and development of weapons, and various addictions and changes to the body if used as a drug. There are 4 factions in the game, and the conflicts between them frame the narrative. The Berserkers are a medieval faction that use ELEX for magic and want to heal the planet. The Outlaws are basically Fallout or Mad Max characters who use it as drugs. And the Clerics are a techno-religious faction. The Albs are a faction which is the enemy to the rest, and they consume ELEX to become powerful at the cost of their emotions, and they tend to have the most advanced technology. So I found the setting is pretty cool because it allows you to have both guns, swords, and magics all in the same world. You can have a Viking with a jetpack. Most of the criticisms around ELEX in Steam reviews appear to be about the combat being kind of janky, which I definitely felt in my first time playing. The default controls definitely leave something to be desired. For example, double tapping an arrow key is how you dodge roll by default, rather than double shift or something like that, which is standard. Hit detection seems to be very hit or miss as well. Keep in mind that this game was released in 2017 too, so there's been plenty of time to fix these issues. If you were interested in this game prior to the bundle coming out and didn't want to take the plunge, or just like these sort of games, ELEX might sell the bundle for you, but I'm going to tentatively say though that this one will be hit or miss, and it definitely just appeals to a certain niche of gamers. Before we get on to number 4, I'd just like to remind you guys that if the video has been useful to you so far, I would really appreciate it if you dropped a like or subscribed. It really helps me out. Kingdom 2 Crowns is a very cozy game that describes itself as a micro-strategy game, and I've never heard that term used before, but I think it suits this game pretty well. The game is kind of like a simple city builder / tower defense game, and is played with pretty much only 4 buttons: left, right, shift, and down key. You walk around your little encampment and buy units, upgrade your walls, and collect more coins. Every night these monsters spawn on either side of the map and attack your village, and they can kill your guys and take away their job, which basically means you have to upgrade them again, so you have to build walls and archers to protect your city. Your character is pretty vulnerable, so you have to return to the city at night so that your villagers can protect you. The pixel art and music in the game is really good too. It looks beautiful and creates a really interesting fantasy world, kind of like a fairy tale vibe. I found this game pretty relaxing, and I ended up playing it much more than I expected to. I had played one of the previous games in the series, and it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I think the early game was much more brutal in that one, so I was pleasantly surprised with this one. You can also play co-op with another person, so this would be a great game to play with a significant other, especially one that isn't used to playing video games, because like I said, it only requires like 4 buttons and it's very simple. Definitely a good addition to this bundle. Next up, we have WWE 2K Battlegrounds. This is an arcade action wrestling game. I feel like this game doesn't even have enough depth or is good enough to warrant going into an explanation of the gameplay. It's a WWE fighting game. It's very simple too. I got through like 5 missions just spamming attack buttons. So why would you play this game over getting a fighting game like Tekken, Street Fighter, or Mortal Kombat? Other than if you really like WWE, I genuinely don't know. I don't like the art style, and I'm not sure if they were going for a cute look or not, but it just looks kind of weird. The music is obnoxious. I like rock, but the music in this game is that type of music that we all associate with WWE, but can't really place the style. I don't think I could describe it better than Chariot Fighter in Steam reviews, who describes it as radio butt rock. Speaking about Steam reviews, it seems that most people share my opinion on this game being pretty meh, with the game having mixed reviews on Steam. If I had to pick a wrestling game, I would much prefer a game like WWE 2K19, which has a realistic look and seems to have been received much better by fans. If you're really into WWE and don't want to pay the ridiculous $40 this is worth on Steam, then maybe this will be a good game for you, I guess. But honestly, I think this game is going to be one that most people who buy the bundle will never even touch or even redeem. I mean, even WWE fans don't like this game. Hotshot Racing is an arcade racing game that is a modern take on retro racing games. The art style is simple but looks good, and the maps are interesting and have lots of great scenery. The gameplay is simple, normal racing game driving controls, and you drift to build boost charge. Simple as that, not really much complexity otherwise. I tried playing multiplayer, but literally was nobody playing, and it was day one of the bundle being released, so hypothetically there should be a bunch of people. The vehicle collisions feel very artificial and weird. You kind of just bounce off of other vehicles and the environment. I know it's an arcadey type game, but I think a little bit more physics would have been nice here. It's not a bad game to be in the bundle, but pretty average and forgettable. Once you've played the 20 maps and tried the different modes and experimented a bit with the different cars, there isn't going to be much to do. I really don't see why I should play this game over other racing games, and with nobody playing it and better racing games out there to play alone or with my friends, this one will probably be played for a few hours and then put on the metaphorical shelf. British people be like, next up is Peaky Blinders Mastermind in it. So this is a puzzle adventure game based on the Peaky Blinders TV show. I haven't seen the show, so I can't really comment on the characters and story, but a note for those that did, some of the Steam reviews are saying that they didn't use the original cast for voice acting, so be warned if that takes you out of the experience. The primary mechanic in this game is the ability to rewind time and modify actions and events on the fly. This is combined with the ability to switch between numerous characters that all have different abilities to good effect. A simple example of this is using Ada to distract a guard and then rewinding time and controlling Thomas to move him past said guard. I thought this mechanic was pretty cool, and it's an innovative solution to the problems that come from giving a player control over multiple characters and expecting them to synchronize their actions. It's also great in a puzzle game because when you make a mistake, you can just rewind and start again. The world looks good and I like the visual style, but for some reason the game seems to be locked to 30 FPS, which is just not acceptable in 2020, and it really hampered my experience. Lowering the frames to that level just makes things look bad, no matter how nice it would look otherwise. Aside from the issue with the FPS, I think this is a good addition to the bundle. There are only 10 missions, so it's a nice, short and sweet puzzle game with a pretty interesting time manipulation mechanic. It's probably not worth the $23 it's going for on Steam, so might as well pick it up in this bundle. Cyberhook is a speedrunning parkour game where you use a grappling hook to zoom around a cyberpunk/vaporwave looking levels as fast as you can. I really like this game, it's great. I'm a bit biased because if you've watched my channel, you know I'm very partial to cyberpunk and sci-fi styles, and the music and art of this game really catered to me in that respect. Although the music, while good, did seem to get somewhat repetitive after a bit. The only issue I had with this game was that the grappling hook is just a little too short in my opinion. I love games where you can grapple around. Adding a grappling hook pretty much just makes any game more fun automatically, but I was a little bit frustrated with this one because I kept misjudging the length of the hook and falling to my cyber death. Why make it this short? It's a freaking grappling hook. Let me have as much fun as possible. Give me more room to maneuver. That aside, I did have a lot of fun with this game. There's just something so satisfying about learning to fly through a level and get a 3-star score, just practicing again and again until you master it. You really get a great sense of speed as you fly through the maps, although I do wish they toned down the screen shake and blur when you reach max speed. It's a bit much. The levels are pretty open, so you have a lot of room and freedom to come up with the best possible route. From what I played, the level design was quite varied and introduced new mechanics or skills to test you enough to keep it spicy. There are more than 70 levels, so you are getting a lot of content with this one. I think this is definitely a good addition to the bundle and something I'm definitely going to come back to in the future. So number 9 is Pesterquest, our token visual novel of the month. It is set in the Homestuck and Alternia webcomic universe, and honestly I feel like I can't even rate this game at all. I haven't read the webcomic and I don't intend to, so I felt really lost. Like, playing this game was like a fever dream. I had no idea what was going on, but the game was assuming I did. So like half the information and half the jokes was just going straight over my head. I guess the art was nice, and from what I gathered, their writing has a similar sense of humor to mine, like kinda dry, ironic, sarcastic, and very based in internet culture. If you like Homestuck and have finished the story, cause based on the Steam About page, this game is kind of focused on answering unanswered questions from the series, I think, you'll like this. But everybody else probably won't even be able to get into this like me. So I'm literally neutral on this, cause I don't even know enough about the story to rate it. The Humble published game of the month is Wildfire. Wildfire is a 2D puzzle platforming stealth game where you use the elements of fire, water, and earth to solve puzzles and make your way through its levels. Each element has its own set of skills that you unlock throughout the game and give you more tools to solve the puzzles and sneak past your enemies. You can play in either single player or two-person co-op. This game has really good reviews, but honestly, I'm gonna have to go against the grain here. I just didn't enjoy it playing it that much. I like stealth games like Assassin's Creed and Dishonored, but this one just didn't click with me. Maybe it's because I don't have much experience with 2D stealth games. I've seen this game compared to games like Mark of the Ninja, so if you like that game, this one might be for you. Personally, I just don't think the stealth is done as well as other games to make me want to play this over them. The level design is pretty linear, so in the end, the stealth mechanics aren't really there to give you the freedom to solve the problem in your own way, like in other stealth games, but just becomes something that you have to manipulate in order to solve the puzzles. It's not real stealth. Like, for example, the game makes it hard for you to kill enemies. You throw a literal fireball at them and they either deflect it or it goes straight through them. That kind of thing just really takes me out of the game and ruins my immersion and makes me feel like the developer is kind of forcing me to play in a certain way. And when you manage to kill them by trapping them or knocking them into something, the game punishes you for it, since not killing people is a bonus objective. Why should I be punished for killing these guys? They tried to kill me. And yes, I know Dishonored also punishes you for killing, but in that game you can at least knock people unconscious to get them out of your way. I'm sure if you like these types of games, you might like this one. It's not a bad game, but for me personally, it didn't bring much to the table that I couldn't get in other stealth games. I didn't like it, but honestly I think that more comes down to taste and what I want in my games rather than the game itself being bad. Number 11 is Boreal Blade, which is a multiplayer action fighting game. The visual style of the game and the focus on technical combat somewhat reminds me of a much simpler Absolver or For Honor. You use left mouse to swing, right mouse to rotate the angle you'll be swinging at, as indicated by the line. There's no block button, but you block by angling your blade to meet your opponents. When you build full charge on your weapons, you get to do a special move with them. I wasn't able to unlock other weapons, but I heard that this move is different for each weapon type. The sword one is that you throw the sword like a javelin, and if it lands, it insta-kills. There's much more to the combat, but I'm not here to give a complete tutorial. The combat is really fun though. I had a blast playing with other players, and it really reminds me of a game like For Honor. When you manage to win a 2v1, it just feels so good. There is lots of room for juking your opponent and outplaying them, and I imagine the skill ceiling could get quite high for this game. You even have people maintaining the honor system of other fighting games, where you let people complete their 1v1 before you jump in, rather than ganging up. When you can find a match, it's really fun, but unfortunately due to the low player count, this is kind of a dead game. I could only find a few games in my time playing this, and once again, I am playing this on the bundle's launch day, so it should have more players than this. I mean, I guess it was a Tuesday, so more people aren't going to play, but still. I'm not sure that this game adds too much to the bundle at all, since unlike Hotshot Racing, you really can't play it when there are no players. And that is pretty disappointing, to be honest. I actually had a lot of fun playing this game. The moments when you clutch it out and win a 2v1 make you feel like such a badass, and I probably would have played this game on and off for a few weeks just to try new things out if there were actually players. Looking at the Steam charts for this game, there were practically no players for this game prior to the release of this bundle, and considering this game is multiplayer only, I think it was a bit irresponsible for Humble to put this one in the bundle, seeing as most people won't get more than a few hours out of it because of the low player count. The last of the normal games is Ageless, a puzzle platformer where the main mechanic is the ability to age and de-age animals by shooting them with this magic bow that you've got. You can also use your Ageless mode to suck the life force, I guess, out of living beings and propel off of them or propel them. I was a little worried when I saw that this game only had 19 reviews and a mixed score on Steam, but mathematically, with such a small number of reviews, a couple of bad reviews can heavily impact the overall percentage. Some of the reviews are just bad, like these people complaining about the first boss / escape sequence being bad or hard. It certainly wasn't bad. To the person who said it was invincible, get good kid, it took me 8 minutes to beat. Seems like a majority of the negative reviews seem to agree that the precision of the aiming is off and the variance in difficulty between puzzles is too great. I definitely felt the former a bit, especially when trying to do puzzles that required more precision. However, it really didn't impact me too much. Second criticism I don't really agree with, based on what I've been able to play. It's normal for puzzle games to have puzzles of various difficulties, especially using easy ones to explain a mechanic to the player, and then harder ones later on after the mechanic has already been explained. But I only played about 40 minutes of the game, so perhaps it does get noticeable. I don't think that anyone is going to be buying the bundle for this game specifically, so I think that having this in here, despite its potential flaws, is alright. I enjoyed the art style and music, as well as the gameplay while I was playing it, so even if it wasn't for everyone, I think this is an inoffensive addition to the bundle. The DRM-free game Ruin Raiders Unknown Menace is a roguelike and XCOM-like tactics game kind of blended together. The implementation of both is pretty simplistic and it's lacking depth from the onset. XCOM is literally in this bundle and this game even visually takes a lot of cues from it, so it is majorly overshadowed. Maybe if you want to get a younger gamer into XCOM or strategy games, this would be a good start for them, but these DRM free games are quite hit or miss, and this is definitely a miss for me. I just didn't really enjoy playing it or feel like there was a reason to play it. Alright guys, we managed to get through all 13 of those games. Before I kind of outline my general conclusions about this bundle, please leave a like or subscribe if this video was useful to you, just if anything to pity my voice, which is hurting very much right now. Anyway, let's get right into the conclusion. I think this bundle appeared to be pretty good at first, but after playing all of the games, I have to conclude that it is somewhat underwhelming, especially compared to last month's bundle. I think most people's decision to buy this bundle will really come down to whether they want Control, XCOM, ELEX, or Two Kingdoms. Not to say that the other games are bad, I am simply talking about in terms of games that are good enough and provide enough value to people to really be bundle sellers. Games like Peaky Blinders, Mastermind, and Cyberhook, for example, are good, but I wouldn't buy the bundle just for them. Meanwhile, a good amount of the games in this bundle are either bad or dead games. WWE 2K Battlegrounds, Boreal Blade, and Hotshot Racing come to mind. The bundle is definitely not atrocious, but I don't think that the minor games in the bundle provide enough value to those not captured by the headliners. Well, that wraps up my review of this month's bundle. Let me know what you guys thought of it in the comments or in the Reddit post that you probably came from. I'm Timtra, and I will see you guys on the next one. Have a good one, guys.